That's the
Okay.
part that's live.
It is Monday, April 13th, 2026. It's 6:31. This is the Old Farm District monthly board meeting. Let's get us started. My name is James DeRofi. I am the board chair.
Karen Johnson, land use.
Ross Tinty, board member.
Brian Kennedy.
And then our newest old board member has joined us officially again.
Yeah, I'm Dirk Benson. I'm joining from Sacramento remotely right now.
But he is a board member. And this is how hip and wild we are. We have people that travel the world to Sacramento.
And the board chair called him old in his very first meeting.
Did I? No, I said he's hip.
He meant previous.
I know what he meant.
Yes. Yes.
Smallness.
No. Okay. So we've got a sort of a weird meeting today. Just so everybody knows, we are at a point where we do not currently have liability insurance as a board. We are in the process of working to get that. The city has given us the capabilities to do it. We are just in the process of doing that. Because that is the case, we just had a rather large meeting with the city. The Southeast Roundtable with the 3 neighborhood districts was a month or so ago, 2 months ago. Went very well. Seems like most people were very happy with it. So fortunately, we don't have anything planned for the next 3 months. That said, I just want a quick go around with the board members, less than 5 minutes. What do we want to do, if anything, for the next 3 months while we navigate this non-insurance time period? We'll start over there.
Thank you for that. We've had on our mindset issues. I don't know what that means doing about it, but we have, on the county thing in the map propositions out there. I mean, Old Farm would be greatly affected by the implementation of the county maps if, for representation purposes, we are bundled together with South County, which makes no sense for those purposes. But I would like to see us explore that in greater detail and try to put something out on our website before the election, so that, because we're getting vague lines on maps, we're not really able to say yet that of our 5,800 households, that 4,200 of them are now going to be dislocated and assigned a geographic area that does not align with any of the things that were part of the mapping process to start with. So that's a topic I'd like to be able to
Go down the rabbit hole.
share more information with our district.
Do you feel like, Brian, that would be a good survey topic?
I think it would be tremendous, but I don't know what to ask yet, because I don't think we have quite enough detail. We need to get that from the county itself. I also think that we have the potential to at least offer, if any of those commissioner candidates want to speak or do something with us pertinent to that could be a question.
But there's a candidate forum set.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking about our neighborhood district. I mean, if we, from a question standpoint, Dirk, is like, what would you ask commissioner candidates regarding our district?
Yeah, it's a great, I like that.
And if we got enough salient answers to invite them to come to a meeting and answer those questions, that would be.
So on that note, isn't there a primary that's coming up? So we could do it after the primary, and that will whittle down possible candidates.
Yeah.
I definitely will. Yeah.
I mean,
we're in the middle of April, so
Yeah.
getting it together by the May meeting is not likely anyway.
okay.
So, but it would be very timely in people's minds, because we're whatever 5 weeks away from the election.
Okay.
Yeah, I do agree that is a hot topic that we should be doing education and awareness about.
Your thoughts for the next few months?
House Bill 4037 integration in the Ben code. I would love for us to continue to be very, very involved in that, working with the city and trying to continue to do what makes sense for our area and all this conversion of commercial land and whatnot, as well as to ensure that there's proper communication still occurring between the districts and the city and developers. And then, so that's basically very high on my list. And then I was really pleased to see the farmer's market that's going to launch on May 1st
Yeah,
at the Ben Factory stores, or I forget what its new name is, but I'm stoked on that. And so I think we should promote that as well as try to participate in it as well.
So that is something that if we happen to have a tent, we could reach out to those people. I'm just saying, like,
And if we
that-
had insurance and you could slip on the banana peel.
yes. So that would be something for insurance. If we had a jet, we could possibly do that and just use it for like a sign up once. I'm not saying this is not something we do on a monthly basis, but that would be
If you don't have it, you can't do it.
correct.
That's good.
Okay,
Those two are good for now.
Dirk?
The only thing, this isn't necessarily something we have to accomplish in the next 3 months, but I just wanted, we had been talking about it, but haven't made a decision yet about whether or not to do more push notifications about land use notices. Right now, we're only publishing them and not sending them out. And I wanted us to talk about that and make a decision. We discussed it in terms of, we don't want to over communicate people and, to the point where they start blocking us. But I do think some of the major developments in the southeast area need to be pushed.
So Dirk, I think that's an excellent survey question. Because if we're going to our own database, they're the ones we need to ask. Do you want this?
Right.
And then we could pose the questions in terms of scale. Because obviously I don't want to know about his ADU, but I might want to know about
Right.
developments of blank size, 20 plus houses, whatever. However we pose the question, I think we'd let our membership answer that.
I like that.
Okay. On that note, Karen, weren't you in the process of compiling some sort of letter to the city regarding land use notifications in general?
yes.
It is anything that would help answer what Dirk and Brian were just talking about?
Well, we had a meeting on, about notifications. There are people in the city, in the annexed areas, that are not part of any neighborhood district. And we're going to propose to the city that those people automatically be incorporated into a neighborhood district until they want to form their own. And that led to another conversation, and that is talking about notice. For example, if you have a larger development, should the notice extend more than 500 feet? Should it, for example, be 1,000 feet? And I'm going to be looking at the codes from other cities. In our experience, the city takes a position that staff writes code. And if someone outside of the staff proposes a code, it's typically not well received. We're going to propose a section of the Salem code, so they can't argue with us about how it would work. They could ask Salem how it would work if they have questions. But the idea of notice of everyone who's in the city getting the kind of notice service that they need is an issue, and we're going to have to change and modify the municipal code to do that. And so I'm working on that.
Okay, so on that note, what Dirk was just saying was basically working on land use notices. We need to come up with a survey. Should we just, for the next 4 or 5 weeks, try to come up with this survey?
We just came up with 2 surveys.
Did we, was it 2? I
Yeah.
thought it was one was,
Well, one could be around the question itself.
Candidates for the county commission.
Yeah. There was what would you want to ask them?
Yeah.
And the second was, do you want push notifications?
okay, so
Can,
on
can
that
that
note,
can that be one survey just with a couple of different questions?
I would recommend 2 surveys, and I would say we push the candidate survey a few months down the road, because that'll at least be after the primaries. Like I said, a bunch of the people will be removed at that
Right.
point.
Right.
Again, that's 5 weeks away. So it's not a few months down the road.
Yes, but in the next 5 weeks, we can put out the survey regarding land use notifications.
Yes.
And then the one after that, we can then ask people if they want to talk.
Be ready to change it out like we've been so that.
So that would be 3 months of surveys right there.
Maybe.
Well, I would say 2 weeks to,
Yeah,
we
whatever.
can have 2 weeks to get one set up, have it active for 3 or 4 weeks. 2 weeks to get one set up, have it active for 3 or 4 weeks. So that's sound like a plan?
I like that.
It seems reasonable timeline.
That's it.
So I do want to ask though about the notifications, the conversation we were in about.
I want to come back to that
But I
regarding
mean-
land use, but I want to ask
No, I
her
mean-
what she wants to do for the next 3 months.
Yeah, but about the notifications that you were just talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, then what does that include? Because I mean, if they're really gonna close Wilson for longer than 5 minutes and I haven't even heard about it, I go, there's a notification. Are
So,
we talking about that in this other discussion?
for the public and for the people that are listening, I will ask her in 2 minutes to fill us in on that. Let's at least finish this one thing. Is there anything other than what we've recently just talked about?
No,
that you want to do in the
no,
next 3 months?
I'm doing a bunch of legal research that will not interest anyone but myself.
But it's on behalf of the board, correct?
It's very important board business.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, great. That gives us a board, the idea of what we should be focused on for the next few months.
What
General,
about you?
I'm okay.
So I had.
I'll tell you what, I'll take on the responsibility of drafting for your approval, some questions relative to, land use notices.
Okay.
Thanks, Terry.
And it looks like we've been joined by Mike. Mike, sit quietly. We're gonna ask you some questions in a few minutes. You're looking lovely.
So I'm looking at, we have the Transportation Safety Action Plan. And I did that survey earlier.
I was gonna fill people in on that, but
Okay, but going back to surveys. Do people, I mean, I don't know how many people know about that, but I do think that's the thing we could do is notify people. This, the way it's formatted is fairly open-ended.
so, okay. What, part of our agenda tonight is there are 2 outreach items that were asked to participate in. One of them is a project being spearheaded by the Metropolitan Planning Organization and the City of Bend and ODOT, and it's the Transportation Safety Action Plan. One of the first pieces of outreach there, we have it on our website. We have also broadcast it on social media. It's gone on Reddit, Facebook, and I think Nextdoor and Instagram. Jen is taking care of all of that. It's going to be live for about 5 weeks for the public. Mike Riley is on the policy board of the MPO. When he speaks, he can fill us in a little bit more on the Transportation Safety Action Plan. If there's anything you'd like to add, Mike, now would be a good time on that topic. Mute. Mike, mute.
Yeah, Mike, can you unmute?
Yep, got it. I don't know that I have anything to add. It's in process right now. Let's see, we might be talking about it at our next meeting. It'll take me a minute to check. Yeah, we're meeting on Friday.
So I can fill, so I am part of the team that is working with Mike. He's on the policy board. I'm actually on the TSAP committee as well as the technical advisory committee. So this is the first phase of outreach. And per their request, we are doing our best as a board to have as many people know about it as possible. All the neighborhoods were asked to participate, but I do know I've seen on social media where Jen's already gone live with it, and we're gonna reach out 2 or 3 more times over the next 4 weeks to just remind people. I encourage everybody to go through it. It's basically trying to reduce the number of fatalities and serious traffic accidents or incidents, whether it's on a bicycle or pedestrian, down to hopefully zero if possible. That's one survey. The second one was, it's still live online. And there was an open house that was a few days ago. And it is regarding the Hawthorne corridor as well as Franklin Avenue area downtown. So it's part of our newsletter. I'm pretty sure it's on the website.
Not sure right now.
Okay.
If not, it will be.
If not, it will be. And basically, it's for people to provide input regarding a Drake Park to Juniper Park safe pedestrian type concept. The city's asking for concepts on the design that they've come up with. It's the standard. There's 3 or 4 ideas that they want to go. It's going to go all the way down Hawthorne Road and then connect to the bridge once it's built. But at this point, they're just focused on the east side of the parkway. So we encourage everybody to go onto the city's website, onto that, and see if there's anything that makes sense. I went to that open house. It's very interesting. Some people are basically going to lose their entire yards, but technically they weren't their yards. It's city easement property. But it will be a true safe multimodal corridor. Goes right by the bus station. So,
What were you saying is going to lose their yards?
well, from the overlays that are there, in order to put in sidewalks and bike lanes where there aren't any, there's a whole block of people that are that currently have a yard, and a couple of them have driveways, and they're gonna disappear.
On Hawthorne.
On Hawthorne, yeah, in between 4th and 5th Street in particular.
Kind of similar to what they did with Blake Wilson and Franklin.
No, Franklin, more similar to Franklin. It will be added. We'll put a link. It'll be on our website. I thought it was on the website already.
Well,
But yeah,
What's that, James? What needs to be on the website?
so the the Hawthorne Corridor Project. There was an open house on Tuesday, but the city staff keeps all of that stuff open for 2 or 3 weeks after their open houses. Yes,
I'll post that to the chat at least.
Ross has posted to the chat right now, and then he'll share it with you, Dirk, if you want to get it up to the website.
Yeah.
Mike, just so you know, it sounds like they want to do something similar to Franklin Corridor and in between the roundabout with the bear and 3rd Street, the way they did, what do you call it? Removed bike lane, driveway type thing. And unfortunately, the way they built it, the asphalt's already starting to fail. I've talked with Ariel about it. But I do encourage the populace as a whole to look at those, because that may be how the city's going to start trying to do things in that area of town.
Yeah, they didn't take away anybody's front yards. They did encroach on some of them because they were in the right of way and or took the right of way, but they didn't completely remove anybody's front yard. So I think that's probably a misstatement, James. I want to be careful about this.
You are correct, Mike. The city's
I
easement is
went out and
60
walked
feet.
out and talked to people and stuff. And
Yeah, the city's easement is 60 feet. So.
yeah, I mean, a lot of places people are using the easement, even though technically it's not their property. And so in a lot of places, they did their best to minimize intrusions into their property, but in some places they did have to use some of it. And in some places they didn't even use all of it.
Thank you for the correction. You're absolutely accurate in that. I do not believe there's any eminent domain or anything like that going on in any way.
No, not generally.
But people are asked to provide input as to design studies. Should it be a one-way road? Should there be parking along the roads? Should there be, like I said, what sort of bike path or anything? It's very standard city procedure, getting public input as to how the design should look. Is that a safe way to describe it, Mike?
Yeah. Mhm.
On that note, since one of our lovely members is joining us, Anne has had some public comments regarding, I guess, projects over here, and as well as 15th and Ferguson.
Right, so the first thing was,
It's hard to hear you with how far away you
We'll
are.
have her come closer.
Great. Yeah.
so on April 5th, I received an email from the Larkspur Neighborhood Association, which mentioned something that I had not had any knowledge of, nor do I think anyone here in this room did, which is the Wilson closing at the railroad tracks. And that is on the 27th of this month, and it's projected to be a 60-day closure. So that means here on 9th Street, I think you'll still have free travel through the roundabout and continue on 9th, but you will not be able to turn west to head toward 3rd Street as we are used to doing, because they're going to do the beautification and the bike path and the multimodal path connection all along where the railroad tracks are.
Okay.
So that means traffic gets routed either to Reed or Franklin or beyond.
Yeah.
So that east-west route will be closed.
It's the first time. I mean, I know that the work has been planned to be done there for quite some time, and they've been having to wait for Burlington Northern to schedule it and get it all done, because they probably have to build it to some standards. We had similar issues with them needing to do some of the work on the Olney, that whole closure that was a much more that was the whole project. This is the last piece on Wilson.
Right.
So I had not heard that it was going to be 60 days, but I'm not doubting that that's the case. I just hadn't heard specifically.
Well, there was an open house, and I did go to it. It was at the new area right there on the circle at Wilson and 9th, where
The Midway project.
yes. So they had a small open house there out in the
Mhm.
patio area. I was there and maybe one other person. So I don't think it was well known, but they did have the maps and everything showing what's going to happen.
Okay.
But it was interesting that, I mean, that's a pretty major east-west route now because of people trying to avoid Reed Market, and then for general populace not to know. But I did notice, I was saying that, I believe it was yesterday, they have the portable digital traffic signs now on either side of where they're going to do the closure, stating that it will close on the 27th.
Thank you for filling us in. You are correct. We did not know that.
Crazy.
And Mike, just so you know, this is one of those, we're going to ask you some more about this in another topic, but sort of regarding land use notifications of like a major project. So that is something that definitely affects the old farm, since many people use that as a primary transportation corridor, whether for a bicycle or for a vehicle. We'd really like to work with the city and figure out how to solve some of these notification differences.
Well, I don't know. I mean, haven't spoken to any staff about any of that or what the standard procedures are. I mean, it's a 60-day closure, which I agree is very impactful. I don't know what their kind of philosophy approach is. It's a closure. It's going to happen. There's a schedule for it. Like, how much in advance do you need to notify people? It sounds like they've already started to put up some of these electronic signs. There's going to be some kind of closure happening on Galveston that I'm not really even sure what it's for. I think it started yesterday. I mean, I didn't go down there today. I don't live very far away from there, but I'm not really sure what the length is. I meant to ask staff the other day and just I forgot. But I don't know what their, standard procedure is, but it might be generally that we just start letting people know X amount of time ahead of time to get people prepared. Too far in advance is maybe not proved to be that helpful. It's got to
Okay.
be like, okay, this is coming up in 2 or 3 weeks. Here we go.
Maybe it'll
So
be in a city newsletter. I don't know.
yeah, I don't know either.
Okay. And then only reason why I'm asking you is because your house basically backed up to Ferguson the 15th, so you get every single notification regarding that. What is the current state of affairs?
Well, what I had heard just a week or two ago was that the city was still in negotiations with the three principals that have right-of-way issues with the roundabout being built. What I heard at the open house for the Wilson issue from one of the city staffers was that they were pretty certain that it is going to go forward soon, as in this spring. They will start on the Ferguson 15th roundabout. Because there had been some question as to whether if these negotiations were not settled quickly, then they would delay the 15th Ferguson and they would move over to the 15th and Reed Market enlargement roundabout project and push Ferguson off to next year.
But it doesn't sound like they are pushing it off.
It didn't sound like it that day, but I don't know if, Mike, you know something more certain.
So there still is a little bit of uncertainty, but we are doing our best. So there's been some things that have been talked about sort of in a quasi, well, was it executive session? It's a public meeting, so I guess it's not. There are just some issues on coordinating the combinations of like right away, like you spoke to, and the project schedule and when do we let the contract so that we can get the contract going and have all the contract work done. And just getting there's timing issues, that there are some things people didn't know about and or even maybe some resistance, I'm not sure, from a property owner or two. And so we're trying to push it through as quickly as possible. And I think the council is essentially going to be asked to approve the contract, even though there's still some uncertainty about a couple of the right-of-way questions. And that's unusual, but it is what we're probably going to do, given the desire to get this project done. Because the other thing that's happening is wanting to coordinate with the Bend Pine schools and their schedule, and really trying to do our best to have either all of the work done or as much of the work done as possible before school open again, before the schools open again, so that it's not impacting their bus routes. Because apparently a large number of bus routes go through, either use 15th and or Ferguson.
Right.
So we're trying really hard so that, even if it's not all finished, at least the buses can still move through on some schedule that works for them, if it's partial closures or something. So I think what I can tell you confidently is the staff is working as hard as they can to get this project going as quickly as possible.
And so they're looking to do this development in the summertime instead of in the fall.
Yes.
Okay.
So
And that's been motivated and been moved up a little bit in part because of these coordination issues with Bend Pine.
Cool, thanks.
Currently have Ferguson closed one lane at the 27th intersection. So are you saying I'm going to have a closure at 15th in Ferguson and then also a partial closure at 27th in Ferguson at the same time?
No. The roundabout at Ferguson and 27th is in design right now. It's
No,
not.
you've got sewer and water and utility work going on right now at 27th and Ferguson. You're down to one lane eastbound only.
Okay, well that may be. I'm not
Well,
doubting you there. I thought you were talking about the roundabout.
calm down, Butch. Calm down, Butch.
No, I'm just saying, we're backing on each end. How are you gonna access anything inside that? You build a dumbbell.
I think I think, since I live there as well, that the one lane closure for the development on the eastern end of Ferguson will be wrapped up long before they can close the roundabout.
What this gentleman just told me.
Well, I think Mike, maybe
I don't think he
clarify.
made a statement.
No.
I think what he's saying is that the various steps that they have to do through contracting and design and other things, but a lot of the physical work isn't going to happen till later in the summer to try to get it in place for the school year.
Okay, how about this? the board will spend the next 2 weeks trying to ask city staff these questions. And then
Well, I'm happy to ask staff, you know, in an email
Okay.
and say, hey, this came up at your meeting last night and people are wondering about the coordination of those two closures and if there's going to be overlap, right? That's basically the question.
Correct.
And I'd like to, if I could, Mike, I'd like to piggyback on that. And the next question, of course, is that if 15th and Ferguson executes as desired, do you know, is it your understanding that 27th and Ferguson might be in line for the following summer? Because we understand there's being some developer pressure coming from that southeast area that is sort of forcing the city's hand on that roundabout. And there has been some voice, and I don't know if it's credible or not, that the 27th and Ferguson roundabout necessarily is having to be prioritized and might come as soon as the summer of 27. Do you know anything about that?
I don't know off the top of my head. I can ask if there's any kind of update about it. You know,
Okay.
I think
What-
at the roundtable, it was presented as something that was going to be happening in the next couple of years, right? And I don't remember if they said there that it was in design, but my understanding is it's in design, and that is because it's been triggered. There's a threshold
Yeah.
trigger that's either been met or is right about to be met. And so it's going to have to happen. And I don't know who it is that's triggering it.
Okay,
What I had heard is that is going to be, it's really, the onus is on the developer for that roundabout.
It was.
It was.
Developed.
Is it not?
Anyway, it's a longer story.
Okay.
It's now basically on the city.
So what happened, Ann, was the developers chose to build away from it, and that triggered the onus to the city. If they had built closer to the intersection, then the developers would have been responsible for it. It was a developer choice to make the city step up.
Okay, so it is then the city's complete discretion for timing versus,
Discretion is an interesting term, but Mike will find out more about that when he talks to city
I
staff.
think it's moved up in priority list. It
Okay.
wasn't really there, and now it's very much there.
That's something we should probably add an update on our website too. Anyways.
Okay, so then this is sort of on the same topic. Mike, there was a notice today regarding the neighborhood street safety programs.
Mhm.
There's gonna be a public open house,
Mhm.
and we're gonna be, we just found out about it today. We'll be putting it on our website. But it sounds like it's all going through the Transportation Bond Oversight Committee. Can you clarify how the neighborhood street safety, I mean, are the neighborhoods part of the neighborhood street safety program anymore, or is it literally a TBOC is now in charge of that?
Well, these projects, that open house, I mean, I saw it too and I read it, and but I understand because I checked on each of the projects. They're all projects I've heard about before. My understanding is that they're going to getting into the details of design of the projects, right? And some of the specifics of them, because you can read in there the list. Those are projects that were chosen multiple years ago in the first round. This is the last tranche, if you will, the last group of projects that's being completed with the neighborhood street safety program dollars that were allocated in the bond measure. I believe that's right. And so these are not new projects. They came up when the neighborhood districts were involved in the process of coming up with there was like 150 projects or something, right? 180 projects that were proposed. And I think we were able to choose like maybe 30 at the most, maybe not even 30. Might have been more like 20 or 24. And this is the last group that's getting done.
So if my memory serves me correctly, when the neighborhood street safety program, all of this, there was around $800,000 allocated out of the general fund, and then did that $800,000 get combined to the transportation bond money, or is that? Is there gonna be another?
Are you talking about,
$800,000 for neighborhood street safety program? We're just trying to track.
Well, let me ask a question, Jamie. Are you talking about, just a second. Are you talking about Councilor Mendez's request for some additional funds to go to neighborhood safety projects?
I'm actually not. But if there is a request, that'd be fine. I'm just trying to understand the history of when the neighborhood street safety program started at the late teens, and I think we're now on the whole second or third implementation of it. There was money that was from the general fund, and all the neighborhoods were basically asked to pick two projects. And then as the time permitted, the city went and did those projects. But somehow in the last 2 or 3 years, it seems like that money or those projects have been folded into the Transportation Bond Oversight Committee's purview. And we're
Well,
just, huh?
I think that that general fund dollars was replaced by the bond fund dollars. It was not additive,
Okay,
I'm pretty sure. And
okay,
so in that sense, then it's under the purview of the TBOC only in the sense that they reviewed and helped prioritize when different investments were going to get made and the sequencing of the various investments for the bond measure. That work on their part's largely been done. I'm sure they still have some oversight, but don't think they got to decide which projects were being done because that had already been determined through this other process.
okay.
So now going forward, once all those dollars have been spent, and then the other big challenge is, well, where do we find more money for similar kinds of projects around the community? And that's still an open question, and it's going to be part of the discussion the council's having later this spring on kind of spending prioritization and budget prioritization, given the various short, medium, and long-term financial challenges that are showing.
And that's what you're referring to as Councilor Mendez was,
No, that was separate, and
okay.
that was when we adopted the budget. I can double check with him about that, but that was kind of a separate piece.
Okay,
Um,
this is all new to us, so,
yeah, there was a little confusion about how much money it actually how the math worked based on the wording of what he said, and I'm not sure how that's been resolved.
okay. Great, you got all kinds of homework from us, I apologize.
Well, it's kind of par for the course when I show up at these meetings.
Sidebar question.
Yeah.
Mike, has there been any progress on interested parties for the Southeast Bend District? Is there any movement there?
Yeah, I haven't heard. I haven't checked in with Renee about it recently. My understanding is that there was a couple of interested individuals. But I was thinking today I should probably check in partly with Sarah and Moss and one or two others and kind of see where that stands. My understanding, though, that there were a couple people at the round table that expressed some interest, and there was one or two others that before it that people had reached out to and had said, no, maybe. So I just don't know where it all stands.
All right, thank you.
Okay, we've only got a little bit of time left. So Mike, this is, we're definitely gonna be picking your brain on this one. Oh, hang on,
The Minnesota loon getting turned on.
there we go. Karen, so Mike, as you know, for months, Senate Bill 8, and now it's House Bill 4037. People have finally read the bill. There's been some talks amongst the neighborhood districts as well as even people from Petrosa. I'm going to let Karen sort of phrase the comments. And I don't know if you know the answers to these questions. This might be something that the city council has to address at a later date. But Karen, if you can talk about House Bill 4037
Okay.
and be nice. Be nice.
Well, actually, the representatives are to be congratulated. For people who are not aware, in 2021, the legislature passed a bill allowing affordable housing to be built on commercially zoned land. They had not realized what that might do to master plans where the city has already decided how much commercial land should be available as part of a larger master plan. And in essence, it gutted the master plan as concerning commercially available land. The Easton project, there were 8 acres across from the high school that were supposed to be commercial. Everyone was hoping for a grocery store that has now been reduced to 4 acres. And we're not going to get a grocery store on 4 acres. Petrosa has some 19 acres of commercial that's now been reduced to about 15 acres. Petrosa wants a pedestrian shopping street, and that's not looking very viable now either. From what I've seen of the short session, it was like a rugby scrum. And it's astonishing that our representatives actually got anything done. What they did do is in House Bill 4037, they tried to address that issue. And I think it'll be congratulated to gotten anyone in the legislature to pay attention to them. But what they provided in Section 9 of the bill was that an applicant who applies to develop affordable housing under this section within a planned mixed-use development, which is to say our typical master plan, shall, if the development would cause the amount of lands available for commercial use within the planned mixed-use development to be reduced to less than 80% of the amount in the adopted planned mixed-use development, the applicant shall amend the planned use development to allow an additional area not smaller than the proposed housing development. In other words, in a case like Easton, where there were 8 acres of commercial, 4 are now being taken by an affordable housing unit, that the applicant would have to apply for 4 more acres of commercial to be created in that same master plan. The thing is, they raise some questions, is that an applicant cannot change master plans, only the city council can. And so presumably the procedure will be that the applicant has to apply to the city council to make that amendment. And that raises some questions also. The city council has the discretion to do it, and perhaps they might decide that that master plan does not need more commercial, even though some of it's been reduced. And so how this is actually going to work in practice, we're not sure. But it's a start, and it enables the city to preserve the amount of commercial land that they think is necessary for a particular master plan. And that's a big deal. And I think we're very pleased that the city made an effort to get that corrected.
You understand, is that the development has to replace the acreage or may replace the acreage?
Well, what it says is that the applicant shall apply to amend the plan, the master plan, to add the additional area. But the applicant, of course, an applicant can't do anything themselves. Only the city council can amend the master
But they
plan.
use the word shall.
And yes, it does not say that the city council must increase, or
Right.
make up that acreage.
So the applicant must apply, but then it's up to the city
Exactly.
whether
The applicant must apply, in my interpretation of this is that the city has the discretion whether to correct the amount of commercial necessary or not. And if
Do
I
you
have,
remember which section of the bill it was in, Karen? Because it's kind of a long bill that did a lot more stuff than just this.
I'm sorry?
Which section?
Do you remember which section of the
9,
bill?
Section 9 of House Bill
Section 9, okay.
4037.
Section 9?
Yeah.
Well, that section's about loans.
He says that's about loans, Karen. Is it-
I'll see if I
well,
can find it.
I had the notes. Pardon me. I want to say section 26, perhaps. I don't have the bill in front of me. I just have notes that someone else had made.
Okay.
Copies of language. Try section 26.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know that I have anything to add to what you've said, Karen. Yeah, I found it here.
It's subsection 9, did you find that?
Or no, I think it's section, it says 26 of the bill.
Subsection.
Yes,
Section
section
26,
is
subsection.
it's section 26, and then it's towards the end of that section.
Yeah,
This is a link to the actual bill that was adopted. I'll put it in the Zoom here.
Thanks.
And then we have a question about the notifications regarding these changes that are part of that bill.
I probably won't be able to help you with that part, but
But it's supposedly up to the city. We think it's up to the city council to decide.
but
Um,
the city council has to, only the city council can amend the master plan because it's part of the development.
No, Karen, I'm talking about where the state says one
I
hundred.
mean, can I go back to the one we were just talking about? I mean,
Yes,
it says
yes.
the applicant who applies to make a change, like Karen said, more than 20% of the, reduces it by more than 20%. It says shall amend the plan to use development to allow an additional area not smaller than the proposed housing development. So I read that to say they have to submit the amendment and that we would have to approve it because
Right.
they have to comply.
Yeah,
But
so that's how she just described it. That's what makes sense to me too. That's
I
how
am not a lawyer, so
Yeah.
lawyers can argue about anything. Bill Clinton tried to argue over the definition of the word is, didn't he? He's a lawyer.
So I kind of have two concerns with that one. One is it's going to potentially force you don't want to create an opportunity to steal from Peter to pay Paul. In the example of Easton, they had sold off the commercial zone to a commercial developer who would then, I think, potentially resold it or resold part of it
4 acres.
to those middle 4 acres, which were then submitted by a different organization for conversion. So you couldn't go then and steal from Easton. I don't think there's nowhere to propose saying, a trading.
Well, in this case, it's master plan.
That master plan only included all of Easton residential because they had sold off the commercials.
Well, technically, there was Easton and Easton Extension, so I don't know if Easton Extension had the land, but I don't know. This is something
But
our city council is gonna have to address.
and it's a problem. If you look at Easton, you had the 8 acres on the corner of 15th and Knott. Everything else is residential and it's being built right now. So it's not entirely clear to me what they can do if in fact there is no land available to make up that 20%. I would
Well,
have,
remember, I mean, I think something everybody needs to keep in mind because of the goalpost rule in Oregon. This legislative change does not affect Easton or Petrosa.
no,
because it's
exactly,
all
exactly.
Prospective.
Yeah.
Okay.
You were just trying to provide that scenario.
You're just thinking through the example. Yeah.
Well, we have a little bit of land left on the far east of that area that hasn't been fully determined yet. So I guess we're thinking in terms of, we lost that one, but maybe we can still eventually have some commercial available to us closer to 27 rather than not.
Sure. And that's the Copperwood Crossing, which I can talk
Oh,
about.
no, I'm thinking about more like.
Yeah. So if I can pivot for just a second, I mean, we've asked the Planning Commission to look at what we could do from a sort of regulatory land use code perspective to come up with some ideas on how what are some ways that we might be able to, incentivize or get the neighborhood serving commercial delivered sooner rather than later. So we've asked the Planning Commission to do it because they've been very interested in it, and we'd like to have them kind of go through a process and then come to the council with a set of recommendations. My understanding from staff is that meeting that's planned for, I think, if not the first, the second meeting in June, where the Planning Commission is going to start that process. I'm not 100% sure about how many meetings are going to devote to it and when we'll get a recommendation. But that, if it's something you all want to watch, I would be starting by watching there. The discussion about incentives is, we are looking into it as part of the site-specific TIF, or what we call the tiny TIF, the urban renewal idea, where you can create these little mini urban renewals that are project specific. And might we be able to use that tool, in addition to just housing, to try to promote, maybe it's mixed use projects that include some neighborhood serving commercial, or just neighborhood serving commercial alone. We won't really have an answer to that question until sometimes probably towards the end of the summer, because it's dependent upon the outcomes of a study that's being done by some consultants about where neighborhood commercial is viable. We want to be careful about not creating a policy that is not grounded to some extent in the economic reality of where things can happen, and the timing of stuff. So we're waiting for the result of that study first, because we probably would then target the policy tool, if it seems viable to even use it, for specific geographies in the community. There are some other discussions about incentives that we might be able to do a little sooner that are happening in the background, and I can't really share the details of them tonight, but I think we'll probably have answers on some of those by summertime at the latest, sometime this summer.
And the other part of my request might be in kind of an alignment of that, or to help, which will hopefully help drive that, is getting 4037 logic and intent into Ben's code. I know that House Bill 8 got integrated into Ben's Rufus development code, or what that code is, fairly quickly. I'm just hoping that 4037 and maybe even improving upon it a little bit for what makes sense for Bend, a slightly smaller city than maybe what all of this is intended for. I think that would be great, something to try to put on the front burner. Yeah, but the goalposts, yeah, kind of important to do it quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's it. I don't know, Ross, the extent to which that, like how quickly we're gonna do that. I mean, we still have to do it if it's state law, right? But getting into the code, the point where there was to have the code consistent with state law, so there's kind of one place everybody's looking at and everybody's clear about it. Just in terms of all the other stuff that's already on the plate of staff and the council, I don't know how high a priority that will be, but I can ask the question.
I guess my request is give it the same sort of urgency that that you gave House Bill 8, because I thought that
Senate Bill 8.
Senate Bill 8, thank you. I thought that got rolled through quite quickly, a little bit more quickly than I thought it was.
When was House Bill 8 passed again?
2024.
I think it was
2024?
Senate Bill 8. It's
Senate Bill 8.
Yeah, Senate Bill 8. Sorry.
Senate Bill 8.
Well, you guys incorporated it in the fall of 2024.
Yeah, right. But I thought the bill was several years before that.
I don't think so. Not 2020, if that's what you're thinking of. Or House Bill 2002 or whatever that other one was.
2001.
Oh, okay.
So, Mike, since we do have you online, our meeting is going to be wrapping up soon. If you've got 5 minutes or 6 minutes, you'd like to say something, anything, whatever you. I mean, we've been interrogating you, and we've given you homework assignments, so.
I appreciate it. Mike, you are right. Senate Bill 8 started in 21. So
You did?
No, I don't. Or
That's when it was passed.
SB 8 was
Passed in 21.
in 2021.
When did it go?
Yeah, right. So it took several years before it got
3 years.
put into the code.
Okay. Then I take back my mistake, my statement of giving it the same treatment.
I think Chat GPT did Ross wrong on this one, so.
I mean, I don't know that I have anything else to add. The things that I kind of thought we were going to talk about, we've talked about. I was pleased that the staff, brought this issue about Ferguson. They came up at the Public Contracts Committee. I think that's where I'm not sure that they posted the presentation, but that's where we talked about it, and that is a public meeting. It's recorded. I was pleased to see that they were paying a lot of attention to one, like just trying to get the project to happen sooner, but also coordinating with our other jurisdictions that it impacts with the schools in particular. And because that's important that, we do as good a job as we can there. Um, I mean, I think the other thing I already mentioned, mentioned that what the planning commission's doing on the neighborhood commercial and, possible code changes there. Don't know that I'm super optimistic that there's stuff that is legally defensible that we can do, but I think that's kind of the idea is they're exploring with staff and hopefully somebody's doing some outreach to other communities as well, on things that they might have tried. Um, I think the other thing that is going to be happening if you watch the council schedule, and I'm going to try to find Eric's weekly report to us. Give me a second here. But we're going to be having some conversations on kind of funding prioritization around transportation in particular, later this spring. And there's a lot to talk about around funding and where, spending priorities, city hall and all kinds of different things, but around transportation specifically. So just watching the council agendas for that, I think is probably a good recommendation so that if you want to see the conversations and see the prep materials and uh, the presentations and that kind of stuff, you watch those agendas. So let me see here, goal related. I already did that.
And Brian reminded me of a question too, Mike, so.
Okay. Give me just a second here. I'm just
No
scanning
problem.
through what Eric sent. So, what's going to be in a work session? We're going to be talking about a supplemental SDC for the Southeast area on June 10th for transportation.
On what date?
On
Okay.
June 10th. There's some flux happening in the council schedule because we're probably going to be changing our calendar again because it's not working out real well. It's kind of too intense for everybody, in particular the staff. So I think, yeah, you're going to see some of this changes. So that might be what we're running into here. Company work plan. So it's a work session on June 10th for the supplemental SDC. Then we're going to be talking about it again in July, actually doing it.
Are you guys taking a summer break?
Yeah, we're taking the first couple weeks of July off and the last couple weeks of August. So I don't know, I'm a little confused. I thought maybe it's this month. Let's see. No. Notification. I'll have to get back to you on that one.
Yeah.
Because it's changed a little bit.
Is it a good time for Brian's question?
What was the other question? Yeah. Mhm.
Brian, I guess I can ask it. We just have a question about the neighborhood district's role in the long-term growth plan, since we've heard about the committee of committees, but we're not a committee. So how's the city council going to incorporate? Pardon me?
More like, is it?
Or is it? Yeah, I mean, are the neighborhood districts going to be part of any sort of long-term plan conversations, or? Yeah, just fill us in.
It's a good question. Did this not come up at the roundtable?
No. We didn't know about the committee of committees at that point.
Were any of you at the our like
Event over on the
roundtable we
northeast side of town? No, we
no, the
weren't.
roundtables we did with all of our committees. I forget if you guys were invited to that or not.
We were not.
You were not. Okay. Because this has come up, I thought, somewhere.
We
Yeah,
found
this
out 2 weeks after that event, that event happened.
yeah, I know maybe it's something that you mentioned to me. Somebody's brought it up with to me. I don't have an answer for you. You know, I mean, you all will certainly be able to engage, and neighborhood districts can, I would encourage and hope that neighborhood districts would work with the city to get people to turn out and to the various different kinds of outreach stuff that they're going to do. I think they're going to try to do a lot of stuff that they haven't done before, going to where people already gather and new things besides just great big meetings, but they'll do some of that as well. Um, uh, So I don't know. I mean, it is a different thing where, the committees are appointed by the city council to advise us on a whole bunch of different topics, and neighborhood districts are a little bit different than that. It's not the same relationship. Um, and
We do have a vested interest in the growth of the city.
oh no, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that it's a different kind of relationship.
I
It
love
would
you,
be
Mike. No, I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
it would be interesting, because if we chose like two people from every neighborhood district, you guys would overwhelm the rest of the committee members and the committee would get really large. So I don't know how we would get representation that's a subset of all like the board members of neighborhood districts. I'm just talking completely out loud here, you
That's fine.
know, and
One possibility there might could be to put that on the neighborhood districts themselves. If
yeah,
the
I
council
understand, but you
wants
all
to expand.
know. I'm just going to speak really honestly here. You all know that historically there was this thing called the NLA, which was supposed to represent neighborhood districts, and it was like the leaders of the leaders, right? If that's sort of how I understood it. I mean, I wasn't very actively involved in that. I observed it from the outside because it kind of was, at least from the city side, it was fizzling out as I was joining the council, and there has not been support to recreate it or support it again because people felt like it really was not representative and they didn't feel like it was really helping us reach a broader sector of the community. So I think the same concerns would come up if we tried to do something where the leaders of neighborhood districts were picking amongst themselves a couple representatives to send. And the questions would be just adding value. We have people who are tasked and are appointed to like the Human Rights and Equity Commission, so providing an equity lens, the business communities lens, the environmental lens. That's their task, right? And it's a different, thing to be. We don't have formal where we appoint people as counselors to advise us on a particular geography of the community. In that part of town. So I don't have an answer to the question, but I think that issue is essentially going to come up again.
Understood. I think I understand. It's a NLA. I don't think is a much of a comparison, but I understand why it would be referenced. I would say from non-council appointed committees, it feels very exclusionary. And you're referencing the opinions of the people you already have in place. And it feels very much like dismissing the greater Bend community at large.
But Brian, this group's, can I, if it's okay, I just want to be really clear. There's going to be a substantial public outreach effort. And these folks are not going to like have vetoes over things. I just, you know, there's going to be all kinds of opportunities for people from all over the city to provide input and be involved and engaged. And I want to be careful about, saying that we have to set some limits on that committee of committees, right? It can't grow and grow and grow because then it's kind of like the whole city's involved. We
No,
have
I
to do something there.
completely
So,
understand that, and I agree with it, that you can't be too big. The outreach that I have seen from the city has been very narrow and focused, and I'm not speaking for myself, because I don't present myself as any sort of a expert in the questions that are going to be raised, but I can say that I've been exposed to some extremely well versed and very knowledgeable people in the types of questions that Bend is going to be dealing with. And if they're not given the opportunity to participate at a meaningful level, as opposed to just providing comments at a booth at a civic event, I think that the city is really missing a huge opportunity. And whether that goes through or involves neighborhood districts at all, I would just say where I'm sitting as a citizen of Bend, I'm like, committee of committees sounds like a fence around the fence. And I think the city needs to consider the idea that there are some truly exceptional people in this community who are not on those committees, who could be very, very helpful in the city plotting a path for the next 20 years.
Brian?
Yeah, I mean, how do we determine who those people are? And like, what's the criteria we use that makes them, I mean, you're sort of describing them as special in some ways. And how do we decide who the special people are?
How do you decide how they're on the planning commission?
Because they apply and we review them.
Right. So how about you make an opportunity for citizens to apply, so that people who have that exceptional experience, I'm not saying.
That's not a bad idea, but that's different than saying it comes from the neighborhood districts.
No, not at all. But I'm just saying that through the work that I've become aware of individuals like this in our community, and I've not heard anything yet that is an open portal for people like that who are not already on the team to join the team. And I think that would be a tremendous missed opportunity if Bend didn't look just outside of its own team to say who could direct us and provide meaningful insight from experience in communities that have already gone through this of different scale, that are very well poised to ask the questions that we as a smaller community probably don't even yet to ask. Because we've gotten to the size we are so fast that we're still grappling with the questions we didn't answer 20 years ago. So
We're over time.
Yeah, no, he's,
That might go. I think
I was gonna say, yeah. Counselor Riley, thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
I do try to, I run a terrible meeting every now and then, but tonight I'm gonna try to, I did let us go 8 minutes, 9 minutes over.
Okay.
But Brian had a very valid suggestion or comment regarding that. For those of you in the room, we'll still be here. For those of you online, if you have any thoughts or comments and you didn't click on your camera, please send us an email and we will respond to you within the next 24 hours. If that's it, then I'm gonna draw a close to the meeting. Thanks, Mike.
Thank
All right,
you.
thanks you all. I appreciate all of you and your persistent and perseverance in trying to make Bend a better place. I really do. I mean, I know, I do. I mean that genuinely. So
thanks,
all right,
Mike. Good night.
Good night. Yeah.